Very pleased now to have our second plenary speaker. She is Dr. Christina Gitsaki from Zayed University in the UAE. Dr. Christina Gitsaki is the research coordinator at the Center for Educational Innovation at Zayed University, UAE, and the Secretary General of the International Association of Applied Linguistics, AILA. In the past, she served as the UNESCO Chair in Applied Research and Education in the UAE, and later as the Associate Dean of the Foundations Program at the Higher Colleges of Technology, UAE as well. Before coming to the UAE, she worked at the University of Queensland, UQ, in Australia, where she educated pre-service teachers and supervised master's and PhD students in educational research. She has worked with Education Queensland and the Learning Federation of the Curriculum Corporation in Australia on state and federal education projects such as the creation of digital learning objects for K-12 ESL students. At the CEI, she oversees the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning course, the development of resources for research, and she provides advice and mentorship to faculty who are interested in engaging in research on teaching and learning. Dr. Gitsaki, we are very pleased to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We are sure we are going to learn a lot from you today, and the topic itself is very interesting. Thank you so much. But if you allow me, before you start, I would just like to remind the attendees, if you have questions to Dr. Gitsaki, please make sure that you write your question in the Q&A area. This would make it easier for me to read them at the end of the session. Also, if you have any comments, if you want to share your thoughts, please don't forget to do so through our hashtag on Twitter, PSUALR2020. The floor is yours, Dr. Gitsaki. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor, for the lovely introduction and for the opportunity to be part of the very first International Symposium in Applied Linguistics Research, organized by Prince Sultan University in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I remember when we first made contact with Dr. Dina over a year ago to talk about the event, and I am glad that the COVID pandemic did not deter you and your colleagues from holding the event. And while I'm sure all of us would have loved to have visited Prince Sultan University in KSA to attend the event in person, meeting virtually is just the next best thing. And frankly speaking, Zoom by now is a way of life for most of us. So the topic of my session today is Issues in Applied Linguistics Gulf Perspectives. As my topic denotes, I will be talking about the Gulf region. Now, I know that a lot of you are internationally based, but I do hope that you will still find the talk interesting, as it will help you learn a bit about this region and the challenges it faces with regards to applied linguistics. Now, I have been working in the field of applied linguistics for the past 25 years. And this does not include the 6 years of postgraduate training in applied linguistics, 4 of which were devoted to researching the acquisition of collocations in EFL learners. I don't know about you, my fellow applied linguists, but whenever I have to disclose what my field of expertise is, people always ask, what is applied linguistics? And also, what is collocations? So I would like to start by defining applied linguistics. I know this is not needed in a conference full of applied linguists, but bear with me, I do have a point I want to make. So applied linguistics is defined on the website of the International Association of Applied Linguistics as an interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary field of research and practice dealing with practical problems of language and communication that can be identified, analyzed, or solved by applying available theories, methods, and results of linguistics, or by developing new theoretical and methodological frameworks in linguistics to work on these practical problems. The site goes on to draw a distinction between linguistics and applied linguistics, saying that they differ mainly with respect to applied linguistics' explicit orientation towards practical everyday problems related to language and communication. Finally, the site lists the types of problems that applied linguists are mostly concerned about, from aspects of the linguistic and communicative competence of the individual, such as first or second language acquisition, literacy, language disorders, etc., to language and communication related problems in and between societies, such as language variation, linguistic discrimination, multilingualism, language conflict, language policy, and language planning. In summary, applied linguistics is about addressing issues of practice in language and communication using systematic data collection rooted in sound research methodology. Looking at this definition and the issues that the field of applied linguistics aims to identify, research, and solve, I can't think of a region more fertile for applied linguistics research than the Arabian Peninsula. While part of the Middle East, the GCC countries have unique characteristics when it comes to language and language education. Emphasis on bilingualism and bilingual education. Emphasis on bilingualism and bilingual education is one of them. Issues and challenges in both first and second language acquisition are also prevalent in the region. It's also worth mentioning that the connection between language, culture, and identity has received enormous attention in the local press over the past few years. So I will be talking about this in just a moment. So in summary, a lot of what is happening in the GCC countries and their societies is connected in some way to language and communication, making applied linguistics research a priority for the region. So let me give you an example from my own experience from living and working in the United Arab Emirates for over a decade. The UAE is a multicultural and plurilingual society. Surprisingly, Emiratis comprise only 11.5% of the estimated 8+ million people living in the UAE. Dubai is one of the 7 Emirates and probably the most well-known around the world. It's home to over 200 nationalities from across the globe. So truly multicultural. Now, in order to meet the demands of the rapid modernization and globalization over the past few decades, the UAE has long implemented educational policies that actively promote bilingualism amongst its citizens. While the ability to speak English is critical for all Emiratis and expatriates alike in the UAE. Now, over the decades, the proliferation of English as a second language in the UAE has undergone a number of phases of growth and suppression, fueled by explicit but also hidden societal, political, and cultural agendas. In its effort to become a knowledge economy, the UAE realized that its citizens need to be fully bilingual. Therefore, Emiratis must pass an English language exam before they are admitted to undergraduate study in one of the federal education institutions, all of which use English as a medium of instruction. They are EMI institutions. In addition to government-funded universities, there are also 79 private universities, most of which are also EMI institutions. In the primary and secondary education sector, while in public schools in the UAE, Emiratis are taught Arabic and they're learning English as a foreign language, there are plenty of private schools that educate in English. In Dubai alone, there are nearly 200 private schools teaching a variety of curricula, with those delivering their curriculum in English, attracting more than half of the K-12 Emirati students. That means that over half of the Emiratis that are between the ages of 6 and 18 chose to study in a private school that teaches in English than attend a free public school that teaches in Arabic. This is because in the UAE and the Gulf region in general, private schooling is synonymous to more English, and in turn, more English entails better career prospects and social status. In a study by O'Neill back in 2014, over 700 Emirati students at a federal university were asked to state their preference for the study language. They were asked to choose whether they prefer to study in Arabic only, in English only, or in both Arabic and English. Although the majority of the students, over 60%, stated a preference to being taught in both English and Arabic, what was interesting was that the students who had been educated in the Arabic medium public schools showed an overwhelming preference to be taught in both languages instead of just Arabic. These results confirmed a previous study conducted by Finlow 8 years earlier. That study found that 50% of the Emirati students in federal universities would rather study in English only, and a further 28% of the students indicated their preference to be taught in both English and Arabic. These kinds of results became a cause for concern and growing sentiments that Arabic and national identity are at risk of being diluted by English, as English now seems to represent more than just the language of globalization that offers access to the global market. Concerns about the onslaught faced by Arabic due to the infiltration of English have been lengthily reported and discussed in the print media, as well as the hashtag social media that chose to bring English to the forefront as one of the major reasons contributing to the potential loss of national identity and culture among Arab youth. An alarm-inducing report was published in the National, an English newspaper in the UAE, warning that Arabic is at risk of becoming a second language in the UAE. The report cautioned, and I quote, "We have a generation of students from an Arab background who are not fluent in their mother tongue," unquote. The report also quoted the director of Arabic studies at one of the most prestigious universities in Abu Dhabi, who cautioned that by being taught in English, students essentially learn to internalize and subsequently reproduce acquired knowledge in the language of instruction, which will ultimately reduce Arabic to a foreign language. And since language and culture are closely knit, by having Arab students educated in English, it was assumed that this will lead to the eventual loss of their Arabic culture and identity. These concerns put the topic of English language teaching center stage in the UAE Federal National Council agendas and discussions, as well as the recommendations made to the government by the Federal National Council, the FNC. The EMI federal institutions were also blamed for the poor performance of Emirati students in the Arabic language. Apparently, using English as a medium of instruction reduced Emirati university students' Arabic proficiency. But as applied linguists, we know better than that. We know from research that the first language is acquired early on, and that 18-year-olds should already be experts in their first language before they come to us in the federal institutions. In summary, bilingualism, language, culture, and identity are issues that seem to dominate the educational agenda of the UAE and the other GCC countries. But decisions at the higher level need to be made with reference to locally produced applied linguistics research. I am concerned when I see such reports, as they're clearly in need of scientific evidence from applied linguistics research. Applied linguists at the local universities need to be involved in large-scale studies in order to ascertain the extent to which these concerns are valid and what needs to be done to improve the state of first language acquisition among Arab students. Small-scale intervention studies can help us determine what pedagogies are most effective in language teaching and learning. And that's an issue that falls under the purview of applied linguistics. Now, I want to address a paradox. While applied linguistics research does not appear to feature in alarm-raising reports, the truth is there is no shortage of research in applied linguistics in the region. Let me explain. Last spring, I became the editor-in-chief and the curator of the Learning and Teaching in Higher Education Gulf Perspectives journal. The journal was first founded at Zayed University 16 years ago, and it only publishes educational research related to teaching and learning only in the context of higher education and only in the Gulf region. It is an open access peer-reviewed journal that is published in English. Currently, the journal is published by Emirates Publishing Group, and it is Scopus indexed as of last year. The journal publishes 2 issues per year and between 3 to 6 research papers in each issue. Now, of the 130 research papers published so far in the journal, and that excludes the reflective papers and the book reviews, which are also published in the journal, 47 papers were on issues related to teaching and learning English as a second or foreign language, and an additional 5 papers were about Arabic as a first language. So while the ALLT journal does not have a specific focus on applied linguistics, but its scope is generally teaching and learning in higher education, nevertheless, 40% of the total number of research papers are on issues related to applied linguistics. For example, academic reading, academic writing, building vocabulary, pragmatics, technology in language learning, culture and language, the role of gender in language acquisition, language teaching pedagogies. The large number of applied linguistics studies in a journal of general education, like LTHE, is irrefutable evidence of how the line between the field of language teaching and the field of education is blurred in the context of the Gulf region. You cannot talk about teaching anything, whether it is maths, sociology, journalism, engineering, without making reference to the students' English language ability, the issues they face, specific ways to try and help them improve their English language proficiency. Second language acquisition and language communication affect every aspect of education in the UAE and other GCC countries. So the LTHE journal is a great vehicle for the dissemination of applied linguistics research in the Gulf, and for allowing local and locally based applied linguists to distribute their research findings and contribute to our understanding of issues regarding language and communication in higher education. Instead of using the newspapers and social media to publish reports that spread often unfounded views on language and identity, applied linguists in the region can use research journals like the LTHE to publish their research and contribute in a constructive way to decision-making about language education in the region. But how far in the world does the voice of locally based applied linguists reach? So let's see. Probably the authority in applied linguistics research globally is AILA. It's the International Association of Applied Linguistics. AILA was established almost 60 years ago in France. That's why the acronym is French, Association Internationale de Linguistique Appliquée. AILA is not really an association. It's a federation of national associations of applied linguistics. There are 35 affiliate associations spread all around the world. Only one association from each country can join AILA as an affiliate. Currently, there are over 8,000 applied linguists who are registered with their country's national association, and they're active members of AILA. So now let's have a look at those affiliates and where they come from. As you can see, Europe, Asia, Oceania, and the Americas are very well represented in AILA. Only 2 countries from the Middle East are affiliated with AILA, Turkey and Israel, and neither of them is Arabic speaking. There are no other Greater MENA or any Gulf countries that are members of AILA. So now you might say, so why do we need to be part of a multinational applied linguistics federation? Well, consider this. AILA holds a triennial World Congress. It is considered to be the Olympics of applied linguistics. The event brings together around 2,000 applied linguists and researchers from around the world. And it is the ultimate platform for showcasing research on a wide range of applied linguistics issues. In 2014, I chaired the AILA World Congress. It took place in Brisbane, Australia. At that time, I was already living and working in the UAE. Out of a total of 1,611 registered delegates, that does not include the invited speakers and the volunteers, only 28 participants came from the Gulf. That's 1.7 Gulf representation in the Applied Linguistics World Congress. Furthermore, out of 1,195 presentations, only 10 were by academics based in universities in the Gulf. So that's 0.83% of the presentations talking about research in applied linguistics in the Gulf. So while our region faces continuous challenges in language and language education, and while there's plenty of research happening, less than 1% of the total oral presentations at the AILA World Congress in 2014 came from the Gulf region. Even though our local conferences seem to be well attended, our voices as applied linguists are not reaching far, and we need to change that. AILA is one avenue to make sure our research is disseminated widely. As the chair of the 2014 World Congress, I wanted to provide a platform to local academics to raise awareness on issues and challenges in the Gulf region. So I organized an invited symposium with colleagues from universities in the UAE. This was the first time that the AILA World Congress was used to shed light on issues pertaining to the Middle East in general and the Gulf region in particular. The next AILA World Congress was supposed to take place last August, but it got postponed because of COVID until August 2021. If you have never been to an AILA World Congress, Perhaps you can attend the next one and get a chance to network with applied linguists from around the world, and maybe even plan for a large presence in the 2024 Congress, which will take place in Malaysia, in order to make our local research and the issues we grapple with visible to the rest of the world. Now, AILA does not just showcase research. It also supports research in a number of different ways. For example, the AILA research networks, ReNs for short, are research groups supported by AILA. ReNs seek to promote the gathering and dissemination of information and the undertaking of research in all academic areas of AILA, with a particular focus on areas that have the potential for new cross-disciplinary research. Here is a list of some of the current ReNs. You can see the wide range of research areas, and this is a reflection of the plurality of the research interests among applied linguists around the world. Some of the ReNs deal with well-established areas of applied linguistics and language teaching, such as CLIL, context and language integrated learning, and ELF, English as a lingua franca. And some focus their attention to new areas reflecting societal developments, such as those looking at migrants, language in different professions and life areas, like the linguistics of food, for example. Now, every 3 years, proposals for the establishment of new ReNs are invited from the wider academic community. And one of the stipulations is that each ReN must have a multinational constitution. That means its members must come from different countries. What a great way for cross-pollinating research ideas and sharing research practice. I would like to challenge our locally based applied linguists and researchers to propose a new AILA research network that looks at issues specific to the Gulf countries or the Middle East or the greater MENA region. None of these areas is even remotely represented in the ReNs. So I think it is time we change that. Now, it is great to see grassroots initiatives like ALR 2020. We've had a similar initiative in the UAE for the past 3 years. For about 2 decades, TESOL dominated the academic arena in the UAE and the Gulf region. But there was no platform for the dissemination of applied linguistics research. I remember when I first came to the UAE back in 2009, I looked to see what local professional associations there were in order to join them. And TESOL Arabia was the only one at the time. But when I sent my abstract to present at their annual TESOL conference, it got rejected. When I asked why, I was told that it was a research presentation and that the conference is about teaching English and only accepted show and tell sessions. So you can imagine my shock and disappointment. In the years that followed, I worked hard to change that. In 2016, as the co-chair of the TESOL Arabia conference, I added an applied linguistics research forum as part of the regular conference program. With the support of AILA and the then AILA president, Professor Claire Kramsch, we circulated a call for papers and we received over 50 submissions from the MENA region for just 6 spots in the 3-hour slot. This was irrefutable evidence that we needed a platform for the dissemination of applied linguistics research that extends beyond the teaching of English. So 2 years later, in collaboration with Dr. Wafa Zogbor, a local Emirati applied linguist specializing in ELF, we organized the Applied Linguistics and Language Teaching Conference. The event attracted over 700 participants. We had over 400 abstracts submitted, with a large number of them being research-based. We also made sure that ALLT was not just about teaching English, but also about teaching Arabic and other languages. So for the first time, we managed to put together a wider range of academics from the field of language education. The ALLT conference is now very well established, occurs annually. Unfortunately, the 2020 event was cancelled just 2 days before the opening date due to the sudden lockdown because of the COVID pandemic. There really was no time to make alternate arrangements, but ALLT will be back next March. ALLT also organizes regular fora, and the next one is due to be held virtually at the end of November. So you're all invited to attend. In addition to providing a platform for the dissemination of research and best practices through the conference, ALLT also publishes proceedings every year and special edited volumes on important themes that emerge from the conference and the fora. So ALLT is doing its part to provide a voice for the regional applied linguists and the research that extends beyond the previously narrow scope of TESOL Arabia. We are currently working to register ALLT with the government of Dubai as a professional association so that it can become an affiliate of AILA. This is crucial for helping to shine a light on the region. Now, my term on the AILA Executive Board will finish in August 2021. For the past 9 years, I've been the only one representing this region and raising awareness about the issues of this region on the AILA Executive Board. We need to make sure that there are others from this region to follow in my footsteps. We need to have a voice on the most prestigious applied linguistics body in the world. And to do that, we need to be more organized in our approach. Holding local and regional events like ALR 2020 and ALLT is a great first step towards getting our research out there. But the ultimate goal is to get more legitimacy by being affiliated with international professional organizations like AILA. Only then our research and the scientific evidence it provides will be sought after by government entities responsible for amending existing language policies, drafting new ones, helping ensure a better success rate in the educational programs applied in the region that depend so heavily on language acquisition. There is so much that rests on our shoulders because in this region, language education and research permeate every aspect of daily life, from the language of communication in the workplace to the education of young children at school, from early language education to the use of English as a medium of instruction in higher education, from the first language issues that arise due to Arabic diglossia, to the use of minority languages in the family. As our host today, Dr. Ahmed Yamani, president of Prince Sultan University, said, success in education and life are a direct derivative of success in language education. That is why applied linguistics research is needed and needs to be promoted and supported in this region. And that is why we need to collaborate with each other, organize ourselves so that we can be heard, working together on shining a light on the issues that are important to the Gulf region is a priority that cannot be overstated. Now, in the last part of my talk, I would like to mention some specific recommendations for advancing and enhancing applied linguistics research in the Gulf region. While some mechanisms exist for supporting and disseminating applied linguistics research in the higher education setting, We also need to create a platform for applied linguistics research in the K-12 sector and early language acquisition. Academics need to lend their expertise in research to the teachers in schools and collaborate so that valid and reliable research is designed and conducted in order to gather data, to be able to draw conclusions and make recommendations based on scientific evidence. I especially want to entice more local academics, Saudis, Emiratis, Omanis, Kuwaitis, to take the lead in conducting applied linguistic research in the region. Their insights as locals are valuable in understanding the issues and how to solve them effectively. Over the past few years, there have been a number of different bilingual programs implemented in primary schools and secondary education in the region. Just during the time that I have been working in the UAE, I have witnessed the rise and fall of at least 3 large-scale bilingual programs and numerous curriculum revisions. What I have not seen is research reports on the effectiveness of these programs in developing Arab students' first and second language acquisition. Experts from other countries like Canada, where bilingual programs have been successfully implemented for years, were imported in the region to lead the bilingual programs in the Gulf. But the context in the Gulf is unlike any other. So it's the locally based applied linguists that are best positioned to lead research on the impact of these programs. Schools need to be more open to academics who are well equipped to conduct applied research and provide scientific reports and recommendations that can help school leaders and government bodies to clearly see what works, what doesn't work, and what they can do differently to improve their bilingual program. Research involving students must be facilitated and promoted rather than inhibited, as long as it adheres to research ethics. And again, the onus is on us, the researchers, to ensure our research complies with ethics and we receive IRB approval before we conduct any data gathering. School leaders should feel welcome to contact their local academics and ask for their help, while academics in higher education institutions should make themselves readily available to collaborate with school teachers, curriculum and assessment leaders to design and implement interventions and conduct regular measures of impact, and to provide ongoing professional development on effective classroom pedagogies and innovative approaches to teaching, including the use of technology. In fact, technology is currently at the forefront as schools and universities had to move their operations online due to the COVID pandemic. At my university, all teaching and assessment is delivered online. At the Center for Educational Innovation, where I work, while we have done a great job with providing professional development to our faculty to be able to use technology well to deliver their courses, no mechanism has been put into place to measure to what extent the online environment is affecting student learning. As an EMI institution, all our learners are ESL learners, and the online environment is adding another layer of challenges that can have an impact on our students' learning outcomes. So far, we have managed to collect some anecdotal evidence, but more systematic research is needed. Speaking of systematic research, I would also like to mention that a lot of the research I see coming out of the region uses survey methodology. About 80% of the papers submitted to the LTHE journal, which I'm curating, are about conducting attitudinal surveys with faculty or students. Now, using survey instruments to collect self-report data on teaching and learning is fine. But when we rely only on indirect self-report quantitative data from surveys, then the conclusions we draw and the recommendations we make will be misleading. While surveys are a quick and easy way of collecting a lot of data in a short period of time, in our field, applied linguistics, we need to employ other methodologies that can provide more quality data and look deeper into the teaching and learning processes. I mentioned just before that designing interventions is a great way to try new and innovative approaches in the classroom and seeing what works and what can be improved. Using action research or pre and post-test designs are bound to provide richer data, albeit with a lot more effort from the researcher. Those of us who work in EMI institutions have the great opportunity to design and use the interventions with our own students in our own classrooms. If experimental research is not possible because of time or because of cultural or other issues such as COVID, conducting applied research in our own classrooms in a naturalistic environment is bound to be beneficial to us and to the wider academic community. If we try new assessment, a new teaching strategy, a new set of materials, a new app with our students, and we find that it works through systematic gathering of evidence of learning, then it will work for other educators too. At my center, I lead the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, an academic field of classroom-based research in higher education. Faculty are trained on research designs that are most appropriate for classroom-based inquiries, such as action research, case studies, pre and post-test designs. While the training is not limited to faculty specializing in applied linguistics, due to the specific educational environment in the Gulf, most of the faculty end up designing and conducting research related to language learning. Now, in order to entice faculty to get involved in classroom-based research, we also have funding available to help them with the projects. Each year, we administer around $500,000 dirham. I think that's about 140,000 US dollars, supporting around 20 to 25 projects at a time. Over the past 5 years, we supported over 130 projects, and our faculty have presented the research at regional and international conferences and published their papers in academic journals. I also organize an annual SOTL conference to help our faculty and other academics from across the Gulf region to present their classroom-based research projects. Again, every year, about 2/3 of the papers presented at the conference are on topics related to applied linguistics. I hope those of you who conduct classroom-based research will be able to join us in our next event, which is scheduled to occur in October 2021. Now, speaking of funding, it is well documented that funding propels engagement in research and development. Unfortunately, educational research, including applied linguistics research, attracts less funding than the hard sciences. Even when investment in educational research, in education is high, the percentage of that investment for research and development is minimal. Nevertheless, we all know research is at the heart of good teacher preparation, educational program evaluation, effective policy analysis and development, improved models of assessment of learning, teaching and learning materials development, experimentation with innovative interventions and practices, and effective use of technology to maximize learning outcomes. Increased funding for educational research will also promote quality, ongoing professional development for in-service teachers, and it will support evidence-based practices and long-term teacher transformation, ensuring an up-to-date workforce in our schools that will be well equipped to deliver our bilingual programs. So there you have it. We need more access to schools and their programs. We need more funding. We need to use a variety of quantitative and qualitative methodologies to collect direct and indirect data of teaching and learning. And above all, we need to keep organizing professional development events like ALR. Such events help disseminate our research, help us to reflect on our current teaching practices, teacher education programs, and educational policies, help us learn about new research currently underway in other educational institutions, help us form partnerships with fellow applied linguistics researchers, and exchange ideas and visions about the future of applied linguistics. By initiating and promoting applied linguistics research in the Gulf region, we have the unique opportunity to be at the forefront of managing, guiding, and driving improvement in teaching and learning across all education sectors. It's not every day applied linguists get to shape educational programs on such a large scale. It is a great honor and a great responsibility. Thank you for your attention. I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Professor Gitsaki. Very interesting presentation, very informative. We learned a lot about the current status of applied linguistics in the Gulf region. We learned a lot. Thank you so much for a very informative presentation. I just shared the file that you wanted to share with everyone. I think it's an article, right?
Yes, so it's a paper. It's now about 2 years old, but it reviewed English language education policy in the UAE.
Thank you so much.
So a lot of the points that I tried to make today in my talk came from that paper.
Thank you. If you are interested in this paper and reading, you click on the link in the chat area. It will take you to the Google Drive and you can download it from there. Okay, thank you. Time for questions. If you would like to ask something before we start questions, Professor. We start with the question. Yeah.
I actually could not hear you very clearly. You were breaking up. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, I was just saying, shall we start with the questions?
Yes, yes, please, yes. No questions? Comments? Comments will be good too. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad.
I'm sorry, it seems that I went off and back now. Can you hear me well now?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I can hear you very well. I'm reading the comments in the chat.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's look at some of the questions we have here. I think in the beginning of the presentation, you talked about students' fluency. I think you talked about research with educators commenting on students' fluency. So here we have Lauren, she's asking, is that related, do you think, to MSA, or is it related to the spoken dialect? What is the source of this broken fluency, if you like?
Yes, I think it's a complex issue, and I think the causes are also complex. When the students arrive at university, it's very clear that they have issues with their first language and with the second language. Initially, we thought that it's just English that they were that had problems with. But we are now very aware that it is also the first language that they have problems with. There was, following those alarming reports that Arabic identity is going to be lost because the students are being educated in English, the UAE government established a course on Emirati studies to be taught at every federal institution in the UAE. And it was taught in Arabic. It is taught in Arabic. It's still there. Sitting with faculty, both English and the Emiratis that are teaching that course in Arabic, it became very clear that both sets of faculty were mentioning about students having similar challenges, whether it is first language or second language. So the challenges that they have in first language contributes to the lack of English language proficiency. And we cannot improve their English language proficiency until we have actually adequately addressed first language proficiency, which is further complicated by the fact that there is Arabic diglossia. They speak an Emirati dialect. At school, they're being taught by teachers who come from different Arab countries, and therefore they have their own local dialects, so Jordanian, Moroccan, Lebanese, and so on. So to put it very simply, our students are quite confused whether they're learning English or whether they're learning Arabic. So what was that? I think I've talked a little bit, but what was the exact question, Lauren? You were asking about what is the cause for the lack of proficiency? Yes, so that was a very roundabout way to say there is no single cause, and there are many factors contributing to that.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have another question here from Philip. First of all, he's thanking you for a very revealing presentation, and then he's asking you, when is AILA stepping the shores of Africa?
We actually had an affiliate in Africa, in South Africa, but they stopped being affiliated with us a few years back. We're trying to get them back with us, but we haven't been able or successful. Of course, as you saw in my talk today, I very much would like to have more of the MENA countries, especially GCC countries, represented and affiliated with AILA. So if you are from a country, of course, unless you're from Turkey or Israel, you are from a country in the GCC or the MENA that is not affiliated with AILA, I would definitely urge you to get organized. If you do have an association already, make sure it is registered with the authorities in your country, and then approach AILA in order to join AILA. But everybody is welcome.
Thank you so much. Another question we have here, it's actually not a question, it's actually an invitation for collaboration. Abdul Wahid is asking, you may develop a collaboration as an AILA representative in the region with the Arab Journal of Applied Linguistics. So this is just an invitation.
Yes, and actually I do receive when a new issue from the Arab Journal of Applied Linguistics is out, I make sure that I circulate it amongst all the AILA affiliates. So I try to do my bit to disseminate the locally produced research in the Arab language.
Thank you so much. Another question we have here is from, again, I think Abdul Wahid, he's asking, you have raised a really very crucial issue. Let's hope this conference will start a collaboration and organize linguistics research in the region. So, yeah. And I'm
Yes.
sure that very interesting presentation like that, we have now at least an awareness of the issues we have and the new directions where we can go.
Yes, and I deliberately dedicated a certain amount of my presentation to AILA and to other efforts across the region, because we need to know about this and we need to collaborate. And I think when we achieve that, collaboration, we will be a stronger voice to the rest of the world. Yes.
Thank you very much. We also have Salma Al-Hati. She's just thanking you for such a great session. Then we have Yusuf. Yusuf Matar, he's asking, how do we move away from a focus for teachers that with professional development and teaching as opposed to research? How do we move their attention from just teaching to more of teaching research?
How do we move away from a focus for research that inundates the researchers with professional development and teaching as opposed to research? As academics and applied linguists and researchers in applied linguistics, we need to collaborate with teachers in the schools, primary, secondary education. They don't have the research skills, but they are the ones that are doing all the teaching. We as academics can provide the research skills to help them conduct interventions or measure impact of what it is that they do in the classroom. When we talk about faculty in higher education, those that are trained in the field of education, they know how to conduct educational research, and they usually end up, all their educational research ends up being about language education, even if they're not applied linguists. Now, with the other faculty that come from other disciplines, mathematicians, engineers, business, economists, they do have research skills, but those research skills are specific to their discipline. So what I was talking about in my research and with the SOTL course that I do is train those faculty on doing research and having the skill set that they can do research in their own teaching practice in the classroom. And the majority of those projects, when they are about teaching in the classroom, they end up being about how do I enhance students' learning. And most of the strategies do involve some form of language help, language support. So even though they are, let's say, teaching mathematics, the challenges they face are related to students' poor understanding of mathematical terms. And then the intervention that they might design would involve teaching of technical vocabulary, for example, in English. So it is language related. So in the higher education sector, while you deal with faculty that hold masters and PhDs, and therefore they have the research skills, often those research skills are discipline specific and they don't conform or they don't fall under the paradigm of classroom teaching research. And that's why they need to be trained to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We also have a question from our YouTube live streaming. Adnan Rashid is asking, you are absolutely right about surveys being too generic. So do you recommend action research in the Gulf scenario? Like, can you comment on that? Do you think it's doable, not doable? Any challenges?
Thank you for the question. It gives me the opportunity to elaborate a little bit more on that part of my talk. So action research, if you see it for what it is no different to what we do as teachers. Before we enter a classroom, we already have a plan about what we're going to teach that day. When we do go in the classroom, we start acting on that plan. And we watch the students to see, are they being engaged? Are they confused? Do they need support? Which of the activities was well received? Which of the activities did not work as well as I expected? And after we finish our class, even if we're running towards our next class, we're still in our head reflect on what happened. So you might go, oh, that worked really well. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do that activity again next time. Or you may think, oh my God, that was horrible. I'll never do that activity ever again. Action research is a more formalized way of doing exactly what I just described, of doing exactly what, as a teacher, you do every day. It's about planning, delivering, observing, reflecting, and then thinking about the next time you enter the class, what you're going to do, and a new cycle begins again. But instead of just reflecting in your head about what worked, what didn't work, you actually write your reflection. You keep a record of your reflection. Instead of just having in your head, this is what I'm going to do with my class, the plan, you actually create a document that shows what the plan is. And it is this, the documenting of what you do in the class that takes the time. And it is, action research is time consuming, which is why not a lot of teachers do it, yeah? However, from research on professional development models, we know that action research is the most effective model of professional development. If you want to change teachers' practice, if you want to transform your teaching, there is no better way of going about it than being engaged in an action research project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe we have 2-3 minutes for just one more question, if you allow us. Somebody is asking, you talked about this conference. Is the registration open or not yet?
Which one? The ALLT conference or the AILA Congress? Or I talked for quite a few. So the AILA Congress, it's of course open for registration, and you just need to type AILA 2021. The ALLT conference, ALLT 2021, you will find the website again, ALLT 2021. And the SOTL conference, we finished our 2020 conference back in January. And because of COVID, we're going to wait next year. Instead of holding it in January, we will hold it in October. But you can find information about SOTL 2020 if you go to sotl.info, SOLD.info. So all of the conferences I mentioned are on the web. Look for AILA, look for ALLT, 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 and look for SOTL, SOLT. I hope to see you at one of our events or all of our events.
Thank you so much. Actually, we have been so much honored to have you here with us today. Thank you so much again for accepting the invitation. Your talk was actually an eye-opening talk. We learned a lot about, as I said, the current status of applied linguistics in the area, and we hope that things will change soon with your help and with the help of everyone in this area.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me here. Somebody is asking about the difference between IATEFL and AILA. It's the same difference between TESOL International and AILA. So TESOL, IATEFL, they concentrate on the teaching of English as a foreign language or as a second language to speakers of other languages. AILA does not limit itself to just English. It includes English, but also first language, all other second languages, German, French, Italian, minority language, and so on. So not just English. Okay, sorry, I thought I'll make that, I'll answer that question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much indeed. And thanks to everyone for attending this interesting session. Now we can go to the other rooms because the paper presentations are going to start in about 10 minutes. So please join the room that you like. And as for this room, we are going to have a presentation, a paper presentation at 4. Okay, but for the other rooms, you can start now. Thank you so much.
If you do have other questions, since we did not get a chance to answer them,